The internet's latest style icon isn't a 20-year-old on a runway in Milan. She's a 73-year-old grandmother from Charleston, South Carolina, and it all started by accident. Her name is Irene Russo, and for most of her life, fashion was the furthest thing from her mind. For 47 years, she was a librarian. Her world was one of quiet order, the gentle rustle of turning pages and the comforting scent of old paper. Her personal style reflected her life. It was a uniform of practicality and invisibility. Beige cardigans, sensible flat shoes, and muted floral prints designed not to be seen but to simply exist. Her clothes were functional, chosen for comfort during long hours among the bookshelves, not for self-expression. She had lived a full, good life. She had raised a family, tended to a beautiful garden filled with roses, and now, in her retirement, her greatest joys were her book club and her granddaughter, Maya. Her closet was a museum of a life lived for others, a collection of garments that were modest, dependable, and entirely unremarkable. The catalyst for change arrived on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. Maya, a bright-eyed photography student, was visiting for the week. Irene was getting ready to go out for her weekly bridge game with friends. She put on her usual beige slacks and a simple cream-colored blouse. But as she was about to leave, she paused. On a whim, she opened a long-forgotten hat box at the back of her closet. Inside was a wide-brimmed, canary yellow hat she had bought for a wedding 30 years ago and never worn since. She placed it on her head, its vibrant color a stark contrast to her muted outfit. When Maya saw her, she stopped mid-sentence. "Grandma," she breathed, her eyes wide. "That hat! You look incredible!" Irene just laughed, a soft, dismissive sound. "Oh, this old thing. It's silly." "No," Maya insisted, grabbing her camera. "It's not silly. It's everything. Just stand right there in the garden. Let me take one picture, just for fun." Reluctantly, Irene agreed. She stood awkwardly among her roses, feeling self-conscious. But Maya's enthusiasm was infectious. "Now, let's try that turquoise scarf you have. And what about that old fuchsia coat you never wear?" One by one, they started pulling forgotten treasures from the depths of Irene's closet. A vintage brooch, a pair of bold cat-eye sunglasses from the 60s, a silk scarf with a wild, abstract print. With each new piece, something shifted in Irene. She stood a little taller. A playful smile replaced her hesitant one. The woman who had spent a lifetime blending in was suddenly, vibrantly, standing out. Maya snapped photo after photo, her heart pounding with excitement. She wasn't just capturing outfits, she was capturing the reawakening of a spirit. Later that evening, as Irene went to her bridge game, hatless and back in her sensible cardigan, Maya scrolled through the images on her camera. A wide grin spread across her face. Her grandmother wasn't just photogenic, she was a star. And Maya had an idea.
That night, Maya created an Instagram account. She debated over the name. Finally, she settled on something simple and true. @Irene's_color. For the first post, she chose her favorite photo from the day, Irene in the bright fuchsia coat, laughing, her face tilted towards the sun. The caption was simple and heartfelt. "This is my 73-year-old grandma, Irene. She was just playing dress-up in her own closet today. I think she's a masterpiece." She posted it, tagged a few popular style accounts, and thought nothing more of it. The first few likes were from Maya's friends. Then, a small fashion blogger with a few thousand followers reposted the image. And then, the magic of the internet began to work. The post started to be shared, then shared again. By morning, Irene's photo had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. When Maya showed her, Irene was mortified. "You put my picture on that internet thing for everyone to see?" she gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Maya, take it down this instant." But Maya gently shook her head. "Grandma, just listen to what people are saying." She began to read the comments aloud. "Her joy is contagious," she read. "This is the most stylish woman I have ever seen. Finally, a role model who isn't 20 years old." Irene listened, her initial horror slowly melting away, replaced by a quiet, stunned disbelief. These were strangers, people from all over the world, and they weren't laughing at her. They were celebrating her. The comment that truly changed everything came from a young woman in Australia. "I've been so afraid of getting older, of becoming invisible, but seeing your grandmother makes me excited about it. She proves that style has no expiration date." Irene read that comment 3 times. Invisible. That was the word. She had spent so much of her life trying to be invisible, and now, by simply being herself, she was making other people feel seen. A new sense of purpose began to bloom. The photo shoots became their weekly ritual, a joyous collaboration. They would put on music and dance around the living room, Irene pulling out old dresses, forgotten coats, and colorful scarves, combining them in bold, unexpected ways. She wasn't following trends, she was creating a style that was uniquely her own. Elegant, fearless, and joyful. Maya captured all of it. The account grew. 10,000 followers, then 50,000, then 100,000. At Irene's_color was no longer a pet project. It was a movement. Irene was becoming an accidental icon, a beacon of color in a world that often sees age in black and white. The world wasn't just looking, it was taking notes. The transformation was total. Irene Russo, the quiet librarian, had been replaced by Irene, the fashionista. She began to walk with a new swagger, a new confidence that radiated from within. Her daily errands became opportunities for expression. She would go to the grocery store in a flowing emerald green caftan, or to the post office in a perfectly tailored lilac suit, adorned with a collection of vintage brooches. She wasn't dressing for others. She was dressing for herself, for the sheer joy of it. Her impact was profound. Her Instagram direct messages were filled with stories from women of all ages. A woman in her 50s wrote that she had finally worn the bright red dress that had been sitting in her closet for a decade. A young designer wrote that Irene's fearless use of color had cured her creative block. She had become a symbol of permission. Permission to be bold, to be visible, and to find joy in self-expression at any stage of life. The fashion world, which had at first ignored her, could no longer do so. A major online magazine, known for its high fashion credentials, ran a feature on her titled "The Accidental Icon: How a 73-year-old grandmother is teaching us all how to live in color." The article cemented her status. Soon, she was being approached by brands, not fast fashion labels, but brands that shared her values of quality, timelessness, and joy. She did a collaboration with a heritage scarf company, designing a collection based on the flowers in her garden. It sold out in a single day. But through all the fame and the photo shoots, she remained grounded. The heart of her brand was still the bond between her and Maya, the laughter-filled afternoons in her sunlit living room. One day, standing in her closet, she looked at the rows of vibrant colors that had replaced the sea of beige. She wasn't a different person. She was just a more complete version of the person who had been there all along. The quiet librarian who loved stories was now telling her own, not with words, but with silk and wool and every color of the rainbow. She had learned that style wasn't about the clothes you wear, but about the life you live in them. And her life, once a quiet, well-ordered book, had finally found its brilliant, colorful cover. Irene's story shows us that style is just another word for joy. How do you express your own unique color to the world? We would be honored to read about it in the comments below. To discover more legends who are living life in full color, consider joining our community by subscribing.